it is a little bit controversial. And I think that this is so tricky because the word autism itself is so broad. So high functioning, I think people assume it means that maybe someone has an average to above average IQ, that they have fluid verbal abilities. But what's happened because of that is that it's that term, especially the term high functioning, has overshadowed the fact that people who are high functioning still need a lot of support, right? And that term doesn't reflect the variability within that group, right? So someone might have really strong verbal skills, for example, but have a really hard time with executive functioning or sensory overload or different things that make daily life actually really hard and really difficult. And so not only does that terminology then sort of beg the question of, well, are these two dichotomous groups? If there's high functioning, there must be low functioning, right? These are two groups, and what does that mean? Which is not the case at all, right? So it places that dichotomy on this whole population of people, which is not accurate or a fair representation at all. But then within this group that has been called high functioning over the years, it also sort of negates their need for support, right? So then oftentimes there are unfair expectations like, oh, this person's high functioning. So the expectation is that they do everything that a neurotypical person does and at their rate, at their developmental rate, right? And so the problem is that the way our brain develops, it doesn't develop in a straight line. So someone might be very bright and have very high intellectual capacity. It doesn't mean that they aren't struggling with other things like regulation or executive functioning or sensory overload or anxiety or things that actually require a lot of support. So when we use that term high functioning, unfortunately, teachers, providers, parents might see that and then think, well, then this person doesn't need the support that actually is warranted. So that's just maybe the tip of the iceberg, I think. But I think another sort of consequence of that is then the person themselves who's labeled as high functioning feels like they have to rise to that, whatever that expectation is. And so it forces masking, right? So this idea that they're sort of trying to appear like everything's okay, even though beneath the surface, they're really suffering. And there's lots of research we can get into about how masking is then related to more psychopathology, right? The development of anxiety, depression. So it's really dangerous, actually, to just assume that somebody can handle everything that's thrown at them in daily life just because they've gotten this label that says high functioning.